If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another CD collection update video for you guys. And as you can see, we got a brand new setup. Well, you kind of saw a little bit of it in my latest Under the Radar, but not for a collection update. So here we are with the brand new shelf that's bigger, better, and badder. So yeah, I figured now would be a good time as any to do my next update. So, still got a few updates I gotta do before the end of the year. So this one's mostly gonna be stuff that I've bought on and off online after the Toledo trip. And without further ado, let's get started. First, we have Bull Thrower Mercenary. So, I just talked about this album on the Bull Thrower album ranking video I did last week, and yeah, this may have been last place because something had to come in last, but this is still a really damn good album. This was their first one on Metal Blade. Of course, if you want to know my full opinion about this album, you can go back and watch the Bull Thrower ranking, but this is still really good. Like Zeroed, Laid to Waste, Return from Chaos, the title track, Powder Burns. Those are the big standouts for me on this album, especially the title track. Like, I kind of like the slight catchiness that song is able to project. So while this was seen as a bit of a drop in quality in comparison to the previous album, For Victory, it's still seen as a really good album by a lot of Bull Thrower fans. But yeah, Mercenary. Alright, next up we get into, actually the next few are going to be some albums that I got that came out this year. First, Cavalera, Morbid Visions. So, people were probably wondering why I didn't review this and Bestial Devastation when they came out back in the summer. Simple. I don't review re-recordings because re-recordings are kind of a dicey thing to talk about because there have been some really good re-recordings, and then there have been re-recordings that are obviously unnecessary, and there's more unnecessary ones than good ones. This is one of the exceptions. This is a fantastic re-recording. Now, granted, I love the original Morbid Visions. I actually love the shitty production about it because it gives it that appeal. It gives it that charm of, like, young kids just going hard and fast and just going to town. I will give credit. Arthur Risk really helps bring these songs out to life, and plus the musicianship. Obviously, within the years since the original came out in '86, the Cavalera brothers, Max and Igor, have obviously gotten better over the years. And then, of course, having, I believe, Igor Amadeus does bass, and you also get leads from one Daniel Gonzalez from Gruesome and Possessed. And for a re-recording, this is probably the best re-recording I have ever heard. I can't stop listening to a lot of this, like particularly the re-recordings of the title track, Mayhem, Trips of Doom, War, Funeral Rites, and even the one original they did for the album, Burn the Dead, I thought was pretty cool. Granted, not as good as the actual songs from Morbid Visions, but still really fun, kind of punky and death metal-y. But yeah, if I were to grade this, I'd give this like a 10 out of 10, but it's not going to count in my year-end list because it's a re-recording. I don't have Bestial Devastation yet. I do plan to get the Cavalera re-recording of that at some point, maybe on my after Christmas shopping. But yeah, Morbid Visions, kick-ass re-recording right here. Now we get into Cryptopsy as Gommorah Burns. So I did review this when it came out back in early September. Actually, this and the following album came out on the same day, and I managed to get the reviews out before I went up to Toledo for my trip and met the Thralls guys. This is still actually a really good album. I actually think it's gotten better in terms of aging for me. Like, if I could just look past the triggered kick drums and the too clean production and just focus on the musicianship and the vocals. It's really good. Granted, I'm still not 100% sold on Matt's vocals, but I do like him more now that I've listened to this album a couple more times. But yeah, this is a really good album. Don't be shocked if you do see it on my year-end list, even though I gotta condense that list down to 30. And I don't know, it might miss out, it might not. You just have to wait until December to find out. But yeah, Cryptopsy as Gommorah Burns. I almost forgot what I was going to say there. And then next to it, Dying Fetus, Make Them Beg for Death. This album still kicks ass. I gave this a 10 out of 10. It's still a 10 out of 10, so don't be surprised to see this pretty high up in the year-end list. But not my favorite Dying Fetus album, but it's still a kick-ass, strong album. I mean, of course, Dying Fetus, you know them for being a combination of being brutal, technical, little hints of melody, but catchy, and just beat you down like a fucking beating a dead horse with a baseball bat. Or if you're going to use like an MMA analogy, this album is kind of like what would happen if Brock Lesnar punched your face in and made your face look like he got stung by a million bees. Ask Frank Mir, UFC 100. Hopefully you guys got that reference. But anyways, this is killer. Definitely going to be on the year-end list. But where's it going to rank? You have to find out. Alright, next up, this was kind of a random one that I grabbed because I got this along with an album that will be in the next update. Gorerotted with Only Tools and Corpses. So this was actually a band I was not familiar with. I came across this album on Discogs from a dealer when I was trying to find a particular album from a particular band that I'm going to talk about in the next update that will be coming out in a couple of weeks. And I needed something to balance out the price because I had to pay quite a bit of money for the other CD that I'll show, so I wanted to balance it out. So I was like, you know what, this was cheap and good condition, I might check it out. And I looked them up. They're a a death grind band. And this was actually released in 2004 on Metal Blade. And I actually gave a couple tracks a listen. It's pretty gross and disgusting death grind, kind of like in the vein of Aborted, I would say. Maybe even a little bit of like Symphonies of Sickness era Carcass. Exhumed, I could even draw comparisons to. Maybe even a little Brutal Truth for the more grindy side. But yeah, from what I've heard so far, this is actually a fun death grind album from a band that I was not familiar with. So, like I said, if you are a fan of early Carcass, particularly Symphonies of Sickness, Exhumed, Aborted, and maybe Brutal Truth, definitely check this out. Alright, now we get into a bit of a 90s classic, and that is Helmet Meantime. So this was one that I bought from a friend of mine on Discogs along with a couple of other albums that I think will appear in this update. So this is the first of 4 that I bought from the guy in this update, and of course I wanted to get this album for a long time, but I just never got around to it until now. Of course, this is an early 90s metal classic, alternative metal, groove metal, even maybe post-hardcore. Of course, the 2 big songs I remember the most off of this is In the Meantime and Unsung. Actually, it was the song Unsung when I first heard of Helmet, courtesy of the first Guitar Hero game. But the song In the Meantime is still one of the best alternative metal songs I have ever heard. Helmet are considered one of the godfathers of that movement, along with Faith No More, even though Faith No More came a little bit way before Helmet, but when it came down to solidifying the sound, Helmet kind of helped push that sound in the 90s, and this album's living proof of that. So, yeah, if you haven't checked this out, I'm shocked that you haven't, but if you have, kudos to you. If you haven't, listen to it. Alright, and now we get something that I needed to officially complete the Immolation catalog, and that is the Providence EP. This was in 2011, and this was one of those weird promotions they did for Scion cars. Like, Scion had, like, EPs from certain bands, like, I believe, who all did it? Revocation, Enslaved, and High on Fire, and so did Immolation. And of course, this is one of the best EPs you'll ever hear, especially for the song Illumination. One of the best modern, one of the best modern Immolation songs that I think you could ever listen to. But yeah, this is some killer stuff from one of the best death metal bands of all time, and I'm happy to finally have it in the collection. Even though this isn't the actual Scion release, this is actually self-released by Immolation, but still, it's cool to have one of them Scion EPs, which is really cool. So yeah, check it out if you haven't. Back to some 2023 releases. Incantation's Unholy Deification. This is another brilliant album that came out this year. Again, don't be shocked to see this pretty high on the Album of the Year list. Although, I do need to re-listen to it, because lately I've been re-listening to albums I gave high scores to for the year-end list, and this is one of those next ones I need to get into. Or not get into, but re-listen to and see where it's going to rank. But if you want to know my full opinion about it, check out my review. This is one of the best modern Incantation albums. And yeah, also that album cover. Fucking rad. Alright, now we have a pair from Katatonia. We have Tonight's Decision and Last Fair Deal Gone Down. This is the other one. This is the second one that I bought from a friend on Discogs. Meanwhile, I got this one. Actually, no, both of these I got from the same guy. So actually, 5 albums I bought from a friend are in this update, and these are the second and third. But yeah, vastly different releases from Katatonia. Like Tonight's Decision, a lot more softer. I believe this was one of the follow-ups to, I forget what album they had in 98. I'd have to go back and look at the list, but this was at the end of the 90s. This was their last release of the 90s, and I believe Dan Swano does the drums on this album, if I'm correct. But yeah, this is very sad and much softer compared to the early Katatonia stuff. And then Last Fair Deal Gone Down. This one I actually need to dive into a little bit more, and I believe this was the follow-up to Tonight's Decision as well. So yeah, it's going to be fun, because at some point I'm going to have to rank Katatonia albums, and that's going to be kind of a difficult discography to rank, because they've evolved so much over their career. But yeah, 2 vastly different albums, but check them out. Alright, now we get into the 4th one that I bought from my friend, and this is a big classic that I know some people are going to be surprised I didn't have in the first place. King Diamond, Abigail. I mean, this is 1987. It's a classic among classics for King Diamond. Probably the best solo album he's ever done. I don't know, like, pretty much every album he did in the 80s, you could claim to be the best thing that King Diamond did for the solo band, but I would say this probably would be the best, because I'm not going to commit to that, because I might rank King Diamond solo albums at some point. But I mean, who doesn't know this album? I mean, the title track, Black Horseman, Arrival, The Family Ghost. And also, what's cool, this is a Roadrunner reissue from 97. So it's cool to have a Roadrunner edition, as opposed to, even though I like the Metal Blade reissues they do with the CDs that look like vinyl, I need to get the jewel cases. But yeah, King Diamond, Abigail, Grandma! I'm not going to do the super high voice, because I'm not home alone right now. But yeah, killer album. And now the next 3 are actually all going to be from, they're all going to be from the same band, and that is Monstrosity, because I wanted to get all the Monstrosity albums, and up to this point I only had the first 2 albums, and then I bought, what was the Passage of Existence, so I had to buy the other 3. So first we have In Dark Purity, which came out in 98. And this one's kind of a hidden gem, because this was the first one without Corpse Grinder. This was with Jason Avery, I believe. And this album, while it's kind of long in the tooth, it's got a lot of tracks, but they all kill. And also what was cool, their cover of Slayer, Angel of Death. Probably one of the best Slayer covers of all time. I don't know, there's quite a few Slayer covers out there that I absolutely love. this might be one of them. But yeah, good old Monstrosity and Dark Purity. And then the follow-up, Rise to Power, which was 2003. This one definitely kind of gets overlooked by a lot of people. I mean, I believe this was the last one with Jason Avery, and then he would leave afterwards. But yeah, this is just some awesome Florida death metal, as a couple of things inside the case kind of went to poop. Fucking close. Thank you. But anyways, I need to get some replacement cases at some point to fix some of these. But still, another solid album. And then the follow-up to that, we got Spiritual Apocalypse, which, if I were to ever rank Monstrosity, this would kind of be high up there for me as well. And this was the last one until Passage of Existence in 2018. And this was 2007 when this came out. And I believe that this was the first one on Metal Blade. I don't know if I'm 100% correct in that. But, I mean, the song that I go back to all the time on this album is Remnants of Divination. 6 minutes of chug and groove and epicness and brutality and melody. Just everything you love about Monstrosity is in that song. But yeah, Spiritual Apocalypse. Excuse me. Now, this one I kind of got on a bit of a whim off of Discogs, and this is actually a band I've been needing to check out for a while. Mortiferum with Preserved in Torment. I believe this came out in 2021, and while I haven't checked it out yet because I just got too many things on my plate, but from what I heard, this is some disgusting death metal, kind of in that vein of Incantation, maybe even Immolation to some extent, Morbid Angel. So pretty much that like raw, sinister death metal, which I see is probably one of the most popular variations of the genre. But yeah, glad to have some Mortiferum in my collection. Alright, now we get to an early 90s classic, and I think I got this one somewhere else. We got Queensryche's Empire. So I'm glad to finally have this album in the collection. Pretty much, I would say this was the last great Queensryche album for over 20 years, because I'm just going to say right now, after this album, the band really fell downhill for many years, and it's all because of one man, Jeff Tate. When he took over the songwriting, everything went to shit afterwards. Thank God he's not in the band anymore, and the rest of the guys can actually come together and write songs, and it shows, because ever since Todd LaTorre came in on the self-titled, they've been back to making great albums again. Not that Jeff Tate's a bad singer, he's just not a very good songwriter by himself. And this was the last great Queensryche album for about 23 years. I mean, of course, the two big ones, Jet City Woman, but definitely Silent Lucidity. That's one of those prog rock ballads that still gives me tears flowing down my cheeks, because it's such a beautiful song, and it's like one of those like lullaby songs that actually works within rock and metal. And Jeff's vocals were beautiful on that song. The leads, I mean, top to bottom, like I said, this was definitely where they were trying to push more towards the mainstream, but still retain who they were. But yeah, I'm just glad that I got a early 90s classic. Alright, next up, we're getting into another band that I'm trying to get to completing the collection, and that is Suffocation Self-Titled. I have been trying to find this album forever, and I couldn't find it until recently, and I'm glad I got it, because if you guys saw my Suffocation ranking, then you would know that this was pretty high up there. I think I ranked it number 4, number 5 overall, so it was definitely in the top half. Great album, much better comeback, I would say, than Souls to Deny, even though that album's actually pretty solid, and that's going to be in a future update. But yeah, I mean, Bind, Torture, Kill, Abomination Reborn, Creed of the Infidel, Entrails of You. which is the closest to a love song that Suffocation's ever done. Even Frank, like I said in the ranking, Frank even sang that song to his wife at their wedding, which is pretty funny. But yeah, Suffocation self-titled. And then finally, we have Zyklon's World of Worms. Of course, this is kind of a supergroup from Norway, blackened death metal with some industrial moments here and there. Of course, I've been needing to get a band that starts with the letter Z, and sadly I don't have any ZZ Top yet. But I wanted to get Zyklon because Zyklon, I kind of look at them as a bit of an underrated blackened death metal band, and I say they're a supergroup because it features members of Emperor, Merkskog, and there's another band, and Enslaved. Because you got Samoth from Emperor, you got Trim from Emperor and Enslaved. You also have Destructor from Merkskog and Seth Demon from Merkskog and Live Bass for Emperor now. But yeah, this is some brutal blackened death metal, and definitely kind of vocally has a little more black metal to it than death metal at times, but musically, like, just wow. Nasty, nasty shit. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes yet another update. Like I said, I still got a few more updates to come before the end of the year, so I could get caught up and then try and wean myself a little bit, even though I still am going to buy music no matter what. But yeah, actually the day I'm recording this is Thanksgiving Day, and the day before, I went kind of ham on Black Friday sales at Nuclear Blast and Relapse Records, so you'll see all those in an update probably at the beginning of 2024. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, keep your horns high, and your dreams wet.